This is Robert Clinkybeard and David Anderson with the Commercial Landscapers Podcast. We're going to take 20 minutes of your life to deliver some amazing business content from accomplished leaders to bring you value, scale your business, and better yourself personally. We hope you really enjoy the show, and I encourage you to share with your network so they can subscribe and we can expand these messages globally. We are also super excited to be supported by two brilliant sponsors. If you're tired of measuring properties, Site Recon platform fully automates measurements so you can focus on sales. So think measurements, think Site Recon. The other sponsor is Company Cam, who make it dead simple to communicate, document, and problem solve with guys in the field, no matter where you are. Company Cam brings documentation, communication, and liability protection together in one simple, easy to use app for you and your entire team. Company Cam is the only app every landscaper needs. Check it out. Hi, this is Robert Clinkybeard with the Commercial Landscapers Podcast. I'm super excited to be joined today by Kaihan Krippendorff. Welcome to the show today.
Thank you for having me, Robert. Great to be here.
No problem. So a little bit of background about you, and you can expand in this. You're a top strategy and innovation expert, both academically and a practitioner. You're also an author of 5 best-selling books, a Thinker's 50 recognized thinker, and the founder of Outthinker, a strategy and innovation consulting firm that has generated more than 2.5 billion in new revenue for mid-sized and Fortune 500 companies. So that's fairly impressive.
Thank you. Well, I think if you stick to one thing for long enough, then the successes add up. Just don't ask me about other things.
So tell me a little bit how you got into the strategy. I mean, obviously business has so many facets to it, but why did you move into the strategy part?
Yeah, I've been fascinated in strategy from a very young age. I think if we go way back when, my father went to Japan when I was like 10 years old, and he came back with some books like, Miyamoto Musashi's Book of 5 Rings and all the Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance and all that. And I started reading that genre from a very young age. And then I went to business school and then investment banking and then business school again, and joined McKinsey, did consulting there. And all through that time, it's just been my interest and passion. So I just happened upon it, I guess.
That's awesome. What do you feel? I mean, what was that pivotal point in your, I suppose, career that you just felt as though, yeah, this is the path I want to endeavor? Was there a particular point that you can remember?
Well, between my 2 business schools, like before my MBA, I came across a book. It was a translation of an ancient Chinese text called the 36 Stratagems. I was living in the Dominican Republic at the time and didn't have a whole lot of friends there. And so on the weekends, I would go to the office and I would, take this book and I would research cases and just started categorizing different business cases according to these 36. And that became just a hobby project that grew and grew and grew. And eventually that became my first book. So I would say it was probably that summer where I said, you know what, I could, really do that. I enjoy this. So maybe that was the moment.
That's awesome. So from that point until now, I mean, how many years ago was that?
Oh, that would have been in 1996.
All right. Okay. So you've got what, 25 years of the strategy and learning from other companies, going into other companies and helping them out. That's tremendous experience.
Yeah, very, very focused experience. Yeah, I love what I do.
So, obviously the last 18 months has been challenging for us all, a lot of business owners. And I think a lot of, companies have probably realized that they haven't been looking at their strategy, or maybe they had one strategy, but now it's been completely turned around. Mm-hmm. How do companies start to almost systematically incorporate, innovation, strategic thinking into their business?
So I developed a framework that is kind of a repeatable process for thinking strategically. And I believe all models are wrong, but some are useful. So I'm not saying that mine is the truth, but it is, but it works. And basically it says, start with imagine what your future might be like and what you want to be in the future. Then dissect your business model and think, should I be now focused to get that future? Should I be focused on promotion and sales? Should I be focused on people? Should I be focused on processes? Should I be focused on my product? And then when you pick those areas, then you expand your option set and you generate lots of potential strategies. Then you analyze those and sort through them and prioritize them. And then you sell that. You sell the resulting strategy. That could mean capturing it into a document or a framework that says, we are going to achieve this by doing these 5 things, so that your employees understand it, your investors understand it. So that's the framework that I always follow. Imagine, dissect, expand, analyze, sell ideas.
I like that. That's tremendous. Talk to me about who's involved in that process, because I hear conflicting, I suppose, opinions from people that, it should come from the owner, the founder, or maybe partners, and then they tell the rest of the leadership team, this is what's going to happen, and you have to execute on it. A lot of people, other people say, well, it should be the whole of the leadership executive team that come up with that strategy. What's your thoughts?
I think it depends on what phase you are, not necessarily how big you are, how long your business has been around, but what moment you are in strategically. You can think of it that every game, like chess, has a beginning, a middle, and an end game. In the end game, you can use logic, and it's more about making precise moves that you can predict the result of, right? So I think that at the end game, it probably is okay to have experienced people, your leadership, think through what the strategy is, because not much is going to change. The options aren't overwhelming. But if you are at the beginning, doesn't mean that you're a new business. Maybe it's a new inflection point. Maybe like what many of us experienced in COVID, there is now a new model of the world. At the beginning of the game, the possibilities are too vast for us to really think through logically. And so it's very helpful then to incorporate people into parts of that dialogue that maybe don't know your industry, that come from other industries. Maybe they're more junior. Maybe they have more customer interaction, right? So you want to get different perspectives so that when you are generating your ideas, you're not only thinking myopically from what is typically done in the industry.
That makes sense. That makes sense. And to take that a little bit further, I think I've experienced a lot of companies who have been badly affected by COVID, not only revenue-wise, but also just their mindset. They've almost been, so bogged down with looking at the negative news. They've almost buried their heads in the sand, and really struggling to come out of that. And they're almost stuck in that traditional way of doing their business. And it's almost as like, well, how do you kickstart that? How do you, create that creativity and that innovation?
Yeah. Fear can constrict our thinking and our focus, right? So you're walking through the woods and you think you see a bear, sometimes you narrow your focus on what you think the threat is. And so that's kind of a natural reaction. So what I like to do with a client when they're in that state is first focus on the core business and do what you can to defend and protect the core business, batten down the hatches, deal with the tactical things that you need to do in order to give you a sense of, okay, I've done what I can to protect what I have. And then kind of psycho-emotionally, you start being open to thinking about what's next, right? And so I'll often do it in 2 phases because, your team might not be ready for thinking about something brand new if what's going on in the back of their head, their lizard brain is fear, right? So that's a way to allay the fear.
Right. No, that makes sense. And to take that even a stage further, I feel as though, I've got, I think we talked earlier about us both having kids, and sometimes at a certain age, almost like you're trying to push away that innovation or just that creativity in kids. And, when people get into a workplace or go through college, a lot of that innovation, a lot of that experimentation almost goes away.
Yeah.
Who should be involved in a business in that innovation part? Because again, a lot of it comes from the top down, but there's probably so many ideas
Oh,
in
yeah.
all different parts of the business that probably have some good ideas. You're just not given a platform.
Yeah. Yeah. No, my research for my last book shows that actually the majority of innovations come from employees, not from entrepreneurs, not from business owners. 70% of society's most transformative innovations have come from people working inside established companies. And if we look at the innovations that have led to great companies, they often are not from the original founder or the CEO. IKEA, for example, it came to dominate the furniture retailing business through an innovation of the flat pack box. Instead of selling furniture already assembled, you sell it in boxes. Now, that idea didn't come to bear until 10 years after the founding of the company, when an employee was trying to get a table in the back of someone's car. It didn't fit. So he took off the legs, folded them in, and then slid it into the car. Now, if you are the kind of leader who can say, look around at what your employees are doing and give them the freedom to tailor the product, tailor the process, for your customer, and you're looking for those ideas, then you can adopt those and then experiment with them and then spread them out. So I think that that's really a big part. Steve Jobs, his team like forced him to release the iPad, right? To launch the iPod. And so, very often the dialogue was no, 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 no. And then finally says, okay, fine, let's try it. So it is, you have a great wealth of innovation capacity in your employees.
No. And to touch on something you mentioned earlier, when you start talking about fear, I think there's definitely a fear factor out there where, employees might not necessarily want to step up. Maybe they have this unbelievable idea, but if they step up and there's a certain fear of either failing or there's a fear of making a mistake and suddenly they're going to lose their job. How do you, I suppose, start to create that platform or that openness and innovation within a company? That's not going to obviously change overnight, but there must be ways in which you could start to encourage that.
Yeah. I think it comes both from the top down and the bottom up. So from the bottom up, there are certain, say, business skills that if you can arm your employees with, you can free them to experiment, to pursue new things while lowering the risk. Training them how to think about business models and design business models, because often an idea is a great idea, but it conflicts with your business model. The way that you would price that idea is different than the way you price it. The processes that you need to deliver that idea are different than the processes you have. So if you could train them, maybe in some of the Strategizer, Alex Osterwalder, business model design things, you could have them take that idea and then play around with the business model so it's less likely to have conflict with your business model. The next thing is experimentation. Teaching them how to lower the risk by lowering the cost of an experimentation. Take an idea and ask, what are all the things that would kill this idea? And then test the ones that are the least expensive to test. Like Lee Iacocca, his team proposed to him when he was the CEO of Chrysler that they could launch a convertible version of one of their models of cars, a Sebring at the time. And they wanted to invest a lot of money in market research. He said, well, how about before we do that, why don't we just cut off the roof of the car and drive it around and see what people think about it, right? So what can you do to inexpensively test a critical assumption? So you can train people to do that. And then from the top down, it's really about reframing failure and looking at capturing and valuing the learning that comes from failure. Maybe don't call it an attempt, but call it an experiment, right? With an objective to learn something as opposed to generating new revenue yet, right? So there are several things, but I think that those three are really great places to start. If you do those three things:
No, I
business
love that.
model, experimentation, and reframing failure as learning.
I love that. That's great. I mean, I love the example of cutting off the roof of the car. I mean, that's just such a simple, basic idea.
Yep.
So I'm going to change direction slightly here in terms of innovation outside of your business, where perhaps you've got a bunch of competitors, and you're trying to think of trying that out of the box thinking of can I go into a different market? I mean, it touches on what you said earlier, where you look at what your core strengths are in the company, but you've maybe been just stuck in this lane for 20 years in your business, but now suddenly maybe you're seeing some opportunities in the marketplace.
Yep.
Some other industries, maybe our competitors might be the head stuck in the sand with COVID. So, I know you talked about some of your models and your tools within your books, but any come to mind when you're trying to encourage people to see what opportunities are out in the marketplace?
Yeah, it's really helpful to put on a hat. Like you wear a hat all day, which is I'm in the landscaping industry. I'm in the car manufacturing industry, right? But what we're finding is that successful companies today less often define themselves by their industry. They define themselves by something else. Maybe it's a mission, maybe it's a capability, maybe it's a purpose, maybe it's a customer. And if you shift your mindset to say, hey, we are in the we're in the beauty business and we happen to be in landscaping, it changes the opportunities you see. Peter Drucker, arguably the most influential management thinker of all time, he said that strategy is simply the answer to the question, what business are you in? And he says, never an easy question to answer. So that's where I would start, is saying, what business are we in if we don't define ourselves by our industry? And how does that kind of company behave differently? Many breakthrough companies are from that. Starbucks is not in the coffee business. It's in the people business. It's in the business of creating rewarding jobs for the people wearing the green shirts that are serving you the coffee. And that has them make lots of decisions, that seem logical from that perspective, that a coffee company wouldn't, or the CEO of Zappos. I think at the Gazelles conference that we met at, Tony Hsieh was speaking, and he said that we were going pretty well when we thought of ourselves as a shoe company. When we really took off is when we realized, no, we are a customer service company that happens to sell shoes. So how does a customer service company make choices? Do we outsource our call centers? No, they're here in the United States. Do we make them get off the phone? No, we let them stay on the phone as long as they want. We give them a budget, and they can use that budget at their discretion to make customers happy, right? And then that informs thousands of small decisions. Each one puts you further away from the behavior and therefore differentiates you from the competition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. So we're pretty close to wrapping up here. Here's a loaded question for you. I mean, you've obviously seen what's happened over the last 18 months. Companies are beginning to sort of try and get their momentum back. They're having a lot of challenges with people. There are questions around the economy. They see what technology is potentially coming down the pipeline. I mean, how do you see, companies changing their strategy over the next few years just to try and go through these, challenging times?
Yep. Well, I think one concept that I talk and write a lot about is what I call the fourth option. So all breakthrough companies are born on a fourth option. People expect you to do one of three things, and you do the fourth thing. Why did Walmart build in rural areas? Why did Dell go direct? Why did Southwest Airlines, why did they abandon the hub and spoke system, right? People get entrenched in a way of doing things, and they keep doing it because it's safe. I know if I do this, it'll work because all my competitors are doing it. And what's been helpful about COVID, it has removed many of the usual options from us. We don't have an easy option. So now we have to try it. So accountants, right? They used to force their staff to come to the office. They couldn't come to the office anymore. And now they realize, wait a second, they're more productive, they're happier. And with the technology, in many ways, it's better. We have lower rent costs, right? So they're not going to all go back. So you can look across your business model and you could say, COVID has forced us to adapt and has forced our customers to adapt. They no longer want to come to our office. They no longer want us to go to their place. They want to interact with us remotely, and they've experienced it. They say, this actually works. So look at where across your business model, things forced us to change, and that change actually turned out to work. And don't go back. You've experienced being agile. You've experienced thinking differently, and you're capable of that now. Don't just go back to what we've done before. And I think that will, the companies that continue to embrace that agility they'll be the ones that win.
No, I love that. If people want to either learn more about your tools or maybe even bring you into their company, what's the best way for them to do that?
Probably my speaker website, Kaihan.net, KAIHAN.net.
Okay, cool.
And also LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn.
Okay, awesome. Well, Kaihan, I really appreciate your time today. It's been really thought-provoking. I think my listeners will get a lot from your presentation today. So thank you for your time.
Thank you for including me, and thanks for the work that you do.
Thank you. Hopefully that was pure dead brilliant for you today, and we've got some great takeaways for your business and your personal life. This is Robert Klinkenbeard along with David Anderson, and we'd love to get you and your friends to join us on our journey. 2 quick things before you go, listeners. Check out our website, thecommerciallandscaper.com. You can subscribe, you can share with your friends, but more importantly, check out our sponsors. We have Site Recon, who are going to help to capture measurements on your property and create a really streamlined process. And we have Company Cam, who make it dead simple to communicate, document, and problem solve with guys in the field, no matter where you are. Thanks, everyone. Cheers.